Scientists detect strange radio signals emerging from beneath Antarctica's ice. President Donald Trump has revealed that U.S. involvement in the Israel-Iran war is possible. Rand Paul says he didn't like Trump's parade because it reminded him of Soviet parades from his childhood, a waste of money and glorified weapons of war. Lindsey Graham says if diplomacy fails with Iran, he'll urge Trump to go all in, give Israel any bombs they need, and fly with them if necessary. Let's put him on the tip of one of those things. UK is preparing for the possibility that a hostile foreign nation could use solar geoengineering to deliberately trigger an environmental disaster. Israeli officials say they now engaged in a fight for their very existence. The USS Nimitz aircraft carrier is now headed towards the Middle East. Minnesota officials say they're still withholding the manifesto from Vance Bowler, the man behind the Minnesota attack. President Trump voices full support for nationwide ICE raids and mass deportations, telling ICE, FBI, DEA, ATF, the Pentagon, and the State Department, "You have my unwavering support. Go get the job done." Benjamin Netanyahu denies that Trump blocked an Israeli plan to assassinate Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. Suspect in the shooting of Minnesota lawmakers has in fact been arrested. Well, good morning, because today we're diving into one of the most critical topics of our time, inflation. We've all felt its effect in one way or another, whether it's the rising cost of groceries, gas prices, or even housing. What exactly is inflation? Why does it seem to be so persistent? More importantly, how does silver play a role in helping us navigate these challenging financial times? Let's begin with the basics. So what is inflation? Inflation is the general rise in prices of goods and services over time, which erodes the purchasing power of money. Simply put, when inflation rises, each dollar you hold buys fewer goods than before. This is not a new phenomenon. It's been part of the economic cycles. The economic reason for inflation, the only reason there is inflation, is the increase in the money supply. That's it. Inflation can occur for a variety of reasons. Demand pull inflation happens when demand for goods and services outstrips the supply. Think about it. If more people are trying to buy cars, but there aren't enough cars to go around, the price of cars will go up. Then there's the cost push inflation, which occurs when production costs increase, often due to higher wages or rising costs for raw materials like oil or metals. The most recent bout of inflation, however, has been heavily influenced by monetary policies. Central banks, particularly in the United States, have been printing more and more money and injecting it into the economy in an effort to stimulate the growth. Does that sound like Keynesian economics to me or Austrian? What do you think? The problem is when there's too much money circulating in the economy, each individual unit of currency becomes worth less. This is why we're seeing higher prices across the board, especially after the unprecedented stimulus measures taken during the pandemic. Now, you may be wondering, well, what can we do about this, Ted? Well, how can we protect our wealth when the value of money is eroding, and how does the silver come into the picture? Silver, my friends, has been a store of value for thousands of years. Unlike paper money, which is printed at will, silver is a tangible asset that cannot be created out of thin air. As central banks print more money, the value of the fiat currencies tend to fall. But silver, like gold, has a limited supply. There's only so much silver to go around, and as demand increases, especially in times of economic uncertainty, its value tends to rise. So here's why silver is especially important during times of inflation. It's a hedge against the devaluation of the currency. When inflation hits, the real value of cash declines, but silver holds its purchasing power. Unlike stocks or bonds, silver isn't directly tied to the performance of the financial markets. It's a tangible physical asset that people have trusted in to preserve their wealth for centuries. Think about it. Throughout history, when people have faced economic turbulence, they've turned to gold and silver for protection. Whether it was during the Great Depression or a more recent financial crisis, silver has consistently proven to be a reliable hedge. Now, some of you may be asking, why silver over gold? After all, gold has traditionally been viewed as the go-to precious metals for wealth preservation. And while gold is certainly a solid investment, silver offers some unique advantages. First, silver is more affordable than gold, which makes it a great option for those looking to get started with precious metals. Secondly, silver has more industrial uses. Silver is a key component in everything from solar panels to electronics to medical equipment. This industrial demand is another factor that can drive silver's value upward, particularly as technology and clean energy solutions continue to expand. In fact, the gold to silver ratio, which is to measure how many ounces of silver are needed to buy 1 ounce of gold, has historically shown that silver is undervalued relatively gold when you could take into account the mining ratios. This suggests that silver could be poised for a significant growth in value, especially as inflation and economic uncertainty continue to weigh in on traditional markets. But there's one more point I'd like to emphasize. Physical silver in times of uncertainty is not just about owning silver, it's actually holding it and having it in physical form in your own possession. This is what counts in coins, bars, or rounds. Having silver in your hands mean you're not relying on a third-party financial institution to manage your wealth. You have tangible, real wealth that's not tied to the whims of central banks or market fluctuations. However, you will find that coin of the realm will be used as money, while bars and rounds will not be used as money. And I've come to think that the dealers that are selling you these bars and rounds, they're going to be the wisest people for you to sell it back to, because in the state of Maryland, if you have a bar that you try to sell to a coin company or a pawn shop or whatever, the law requires them, if it has a serial number, to hold on to that bar, file a police report, find out if it's stolen, and then return it to the owner if it in fact was stolen. So my question to you is, what percentage of the real value of the bar do you think you're going to get when the possibility exists that number one, it might be stolen, or number two, it might be counterfeit? You don't have to worry about that as far as coin of the realm is concerned. And the dealers know this. They're going to be ready to offer you 78% of what it is you originally paid. Now, yes, it's probably going to be more after the switch is flipped than what you'd paid, yes, but you're not getting full fungibility out of holding the coin of the realm. Dimes are the best place to be right now. Remember, silver has stood the test of time as a reliable store of value. Whether we're facing economic turmoil, inflation, or uncertainty, silver offers an opportunity to preserve wealth and secure financial stability for the future. To wrap up, understanding inflation and its effect on your purchasing power is the key to making informed financial decisions. But inflation doesn't have to mean the end of your financial security. By investing in silver, you can protect your wealth from the eroding effects of inflation while also positioning yourself to benefit from silver's long-term growth potential. Just in, massive U.S. Air Force deployment underway after a dozen stratotankers heading towards the eastern seaboard of the United States with unknown destinations. Getting serious here, don't you think?
Y'all, I need you to hear me real clear right now, because Russia just moved nuclear bombers, not near Ukraine, not over the Atlantic, but 410 miles from U.S. soil, stationed in Anadir, facing Alaska. And within days, the United States quietly deployed 700 active duty Marines to Seal Beach, California. That isn't where the war is. That's right here at home. You think that's a coincidence? Meanwhile, Israel strikes Iran, Iran fires back, and the U.S. starts pulling embassy personnel from Iraq and Bahrain like a fire drill. So let's put this together. Russia moved nuclear weapons into launch proximity. We deployed Marines to guard our largest West Coast port. Iran's threatening retaliation, and we're evacuating our own diplomats, and we're being told this is just business as usual. Come on now. I was raised Southern, trained in law, and grounded in reality, and this isn't normal. You do not move Marines for a protest. You do not park nukes without a plan, and you sure don't clear embassies unless you're expecting escalation. These aren't scattered headlines, guys. This is a synchronized shift, military, diplomatic, and domestic. And if we've been feeling like something big is coming, it's because it is. They're not gonna say it out loud, but every move they're making right now says brace. Not because a war's been declared, but because we are on the edge of a moment too big to ignore. You don't need fear, you need clarity, and what we're seeing is a pattern, not a panic. If this was a conspiracy, it'd be too obvious, but it's not. It's strategic, quiet, calculated, and it's happening right now. Stay aware, stay grounded, and stop waiting for a headline to tell you what your gut already knows. This isn't coincidence. This is coordination, and it means something's coming.
Bond king Jeffrey Gundlach forecasts flood of money printing from the Federal Reserve to push long-term treasuries and keep long-term treasuries afloat. Billionaire Jeffrey Gundlach believes the Federal Reserve will most likely be forced to print money to support the U.S. Treasury market. When they do this, what do you think is going to happen to the value of silver? What do you think is going to happen to the value of the dollar? They act dichotomously to each other. So the dollar goes down, silver is going to go up. Again, I told you that when the interest rates go down, that is rocket fuel for silver. When this happens, I'm telling you, it's going to happen so fast, you're not going to be able to get it. So if you know anybody out there with bars and rounds and you want to help them out, they need to be holding the coin of the realm, not some junk that some dealer wanted to sell them, a lunar collection. You want something that everybody's familiar with. You don't want something that's unique. In a new interview at the Bloomberg Credit Forum, the Double Line Capital founder says the Fed will likely need to counter a lack of demand for the long end of the U.S. Treasuries in the form of quantitative easing. Make it cheaper, right? Is that Keynesian economics or is that Austrian monetary economics? You guys tell me. QE is when a central bank buys assets, typically government bonds, to inject money into the economy, aiming to boost the money supply and reduce long-term interest rates. Keynesian economics. Many investors have flocked to the short-term bonds of this cycle, with Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway reporting owning at least 5% of the short-term T-market bills. Again, it's another proxy for your purchasing power. With a lack of demand of hurting long-term treasuries and boosting yields up to painful levels, Gundlach says the Fed will most likely respond with a similar reaction to the COVID-induced money printing campaign of 2020. More importantly, I would ask you, what are you going to receive when it's time for the bond to be cashed in? A whole bunch of digits on a computer screen? And are you going to be able to swap that at that point in time for coin of the realm? Who knows? It might all be gone by that time. The world's most secretive society meets in Sweden as tensions between Europe and Trump reach a boiling point. The annual Bilderberg meeting is now underway in Sweden, providing a private forum for discussion at a time when President Donald Trump has upended security and economic ties between U.S. and Europe. The high-level networking event was formed in 1954 to foster dialogue between the U.S. and Europe. Media outlets are not invited to attend, and delegates rarely speak about what is discussed, triggering numerous conspiracy theories about their aims. Again, they have this kind of control because they have the power to create currency at will. And that's what we need to take away from them. We take that power away from them, we give it back to God, then you actually have to expend purchasing, you have to expend energy to get real purchasing power. See, somebody expended energy for this. They didn't expend any energy for this whatsoever. This is a proxy for your purchasing power. This is purchasing power. Okay. The depopulation agenda is on the Bilderberg board in 2025. The Bilderberg Group's 2025 meeting in Stockholm this week raised eyebrows by flirting depopulation among its main discussion topics. On the group's website, the topic depopulation and migration appears to be alongside 10 other topics, including U.S. economy, authoritarian axis, and nuclear proliferation. China's yuan fixing rate hits 2-month high as U.S. dollar drops. With the U.S. dollar sagging, China's central bank has strengthened the midpoint rate for the country's currency in recent days. Real estate tycoon blames Fed boss Jerome Powell for housing market crisis. A real estate tycoon has hit out at the Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell for challenges facing the housing market. Grant Cardone claimed that Powell, who leads the committee that sets interest rates, has caused a housing crisis. The CEO of Cardone Capital told business that Powell has done more damage to the middle class and the housing in this country than any other single Fed or any decision that has ever been made out of Washington, D.C. Well, folks, it's come to that time now. We're going to say goodbye for the day. We're going to come back with you as close to 8:30 tomorrow morning as possible. The show's only an hour and 20. The broadcast is only an hour and 26 minutes. So we were able to get it done on time. I don't know what the news cycle is going to feel tomorrow. I don't know if we're going to have internet tonight. I don't know what's happening. I know what is going to happen. I just don't know the timing of it. If I did, God rest my soul, I would tell you. I would.